All right, so welcome to today's cooking demo here at the Senior Center. This year we are taking approach of each month we're going to do a new recipe, and we're going to kind of address, I'm going to say ailments. It sounds like bad when we're saying address ailments, but certain illnesses, certain health conditions benefit from eating or not eating certain food items. So this month we're going to start off with those people who maybe have celiac disease or gluten intolerance. And so we're going to do a gluten-free recipe today. We'll probably do a recipe for lactose intolerant and vegan and, something that's good for, helping heart health and maybe help combat heart disease. So we'll just kind of hit all over the spectrum. And if you've got a special dietary need that you have that you would like some ideas about, definitely let me know. And we'll try to find a recipe and get information to, help you if you're hitting a spot where you just don't know what to do to eat anymore, because everything seems like a no. So today we're doing a Southwest quinoa salad, which is something I actually really enjoy, and all credit goes to my middle daughter, Karina. She introduced my family to quinoa. She loves it. She never liked the texture of rice for some reason, but she likes quinoa. So I can't begin to explain it, but she introduced it to us. It is like a rice, but it's a smaller grain. So it was a texture thing. It wasn't a flavor thing. It was a texture thing. So this is quinoa. You can't even see it. The grains are so tiny. Wow. So how tiny. Now, just like most starches, when you cook it in water, it does puff up a little bit. So you'll actually be able to see the grains that you're going to be eating that are cooked. But that's how small they are in a package when they're dried out. They do cook very much like rice in boiling water, depending there's actually different types of quinoa. So there's red, black, and white quinoa. You can actually buy it where it's a big mixture and have very colorful quinoa. Party in a bowl. It can have a bit of a nutty flavor, but it's not a nut. So sometimes our foods do that. They can, especially when you toast them, certain spices, certain herbs. If you've ever had rice-a-roni and they tell you have to, cook it in the butter until it gets lightly brown, you're giving it a nutty flavor. So we can do that with the quinoa as well. And it cooks in about 10 to 15 minutes for most regular quinoas. Today I cheated. This is a quick cook quinoa. So it went and got ready in about 5 minutes, which was nice for today.
What brand is this?
This is O Organics from that place that's Way of the Safe. Yeah. They did not give me free groceries, so I will not give them a plug freely on the internet. And I did cook it in some vegetable stock. So it's a great way to, if you're trying to avoid proteins, or if you've got somebody who's vegetarian, you can always use the vegetable stock. If you don't care, you can certainly use chicken stock. Easier to find. Sometimes it's fun hunting down vegetable stock. Of course, you can also make your own at home. So feel free to do that. So for our recipe, I guess I should get a bigger bowl out. That one's not going to be big enough. I try to use clear bowls, but sometimes they're just not big enough. So I will stop and do the tilt so you guys can see what it looks like in the bowl. So our quinoa, as I promised, just finished cooking. And you can let it cool. This can be a cold salad or a warm salad, depending on your preference. Some people have cold sensitivity in the mouth, so they like to warm everything up. I'm actually going to make this with this warm quinoa, but it does taste good cold. All right, so it's a promise. That's kind of what it looks like. A little bit fluffier, a little bit puffed up. Good stuff. All right, so I'm going to, because there's several of us here, you will see bigger quantities. That way everybody gets a taste more than a teaspoonful. I am doubling our ingredients today, so it will look more than what your recipe says. Just to keep in mind, because sometimes it's disappointing when you get a recipe, you make it, and you're like, well, this didn't make that much.
Well, you ought to have your own TV show for that. Like the little folks do.
You can go watch. Well, as soon as she finds them all. Oh, and I should do a quick shout out to our new cooking station. This is a reclaimed cabinet from here at the senior center. So Robin, with the maintenance team for the city, she put some casters on it and cleaned it up for me. So now I have a roving kitchen. It's got drawers back here, so I don't have to carry things out in armloads. So I'm very happy with her right now. All right, so when you have your quinoa cooked up, and again, somewhere between 5 and 15 minutes, depending if you do the quick cook, or I don't know, 15 minutes just doesn't seem to be slow cook, but I guess if you're really hungry and you have to wait 15 minutes for it to cook, maybe it seems like forever. So we're going to put our quinoa in our big bowl. I also have black beans. These have been rinsed. Don't like to do it right out of the can because they have that lovely bean slime. So rinse your beans. Tastes a lot better, less gritty. Again, I doubled it, so this looks excessively like a very large can of beans. Spank your bowl. Gotta have some fun with it, right? All right, now we're going to get corny. All right. You love me, I know. All right, so I actually like, because this is rather simple, this is an ingredient I like to change up a bit. I actually like to buy fire roasted corn, or you can do it yourself and just kind of roast your corn in a pan. Gives that little bit of char on it, and it just tastes good. This came from the same location as that quinoa in the freezer section. So it's a bag of frozen fire roasted corn. You can't find it in a can, unfortunately. At least I haven't found it in a can, but I have found it in the freezer. If you know somebody who barbecues a lot, you can always ask them to throw a corn of cob on the grill for you just so you can make your own. But it just adds another depth of flavor that I really like in the salad. I also like barbecue flavors a lot, so give me the carbon. I like it. If you have issues with corn, you can leave corn out. This is not essential to the recipe, and you could use less of it. You all know your guts. I don't. So we're adding it in today. If you hate me later, I'm sorry. All right, now we gotta start playing with some things. All right, so I think our recipe says 4. All right, there's 9 here, so I'm just gonna start cutting them. Ha ha ha. Okay. We'll just pretend I can do math. There we go. No.
Not to interrupt you, but did you know you could take the white ends of those onions and stick them in water and the green part will grow?
Mm-hmm. Just like celery. Celery will do that.
My sister did it. Boy, they grew.
Do you want to go home with the white ends? Do you want to grow some more? Does anybody want to make and take project? I'll just leave them over here on the end in case you feel like trying a science experiment at home. All right. So because we doubled, we're doubling, we're doing 9 things of green onion, adding them to our little menagerie. We've also got our bell peppers. Wash, rinse your food. Always a good thing. Dry it off. Just because you don't know who's been handling it in the grocery store. You know. I was following a family through today, and I was like, yep, everything's getting washed when I get back to the senior center. Like I was not going to buy a banana after that. But all right. And you're just going to, really, there's no magic formula for what size to do your peppers. Texturally, it's whatever you want it to be. And again, if you like warm foods, if you'd rather this be a warm salad, you can actually go ahead and, throw these in a pan on the stove and just soften them up a little bit, warm them up. If you prefer to do this as a warm salad, you can actually throw the tomatoes in there too. It will release the juices of the tomato, so just be aware of that. You might get a little soup at the bottom of your quinoa salad when the tomatoes start leaking out. But that's okay. Let's see here. Oh, I was going to talk to you guys about what what gluten was. I knew there was something I was forgetting. I'll start talking with a knife in my hand. It's just what I get to eat later when no one's around. I love bell peppers. They're my favorite vegetable. All right, so gluten. Gluten is a protein that comes from wheat. It's one of the things that helps things with wheat kind of get that fluffy texture of our baked goods. And some people's systems just really have a problem processing that protein. And that's why, they have the diet that tries to cut it out. Celiac disease is one of those. People who have celiac disease, it's almost like an allergic reaction to gluten. Their intestines get very upset with them. They get very inflamed. It's very painful. And it can make them very, very sick. So some people have to be very, very careful about not eating gluten. Other people choose to do it, or doctors will recommend and I'd say diet, not as something like you're trying to lose weight, but just as a method of eating. They recommend not eating gluten for certain other ailments. So you might not even be allergic to it, but maybe you have an illness that has inflammation. Gluten is known to kind of increase that inflammation. So you'll see on our list of our handout quite a few ailments that can be triggered by gluten. I know that my doctor has recommended that I try to go gluten-free. And I use the word try because she knows me too well. So it won't be perfect, but the less I eat of gluten, the better, right? If you're going to do something, you might not do it perfectly, but if you eat less of it, if you find alternatives that you like, it might help some of your health things if you've got an ailment that's on that list, which that list was pretty thorough for a lot of seniors that I know. So a lot of folks get touched by at least one thing on that list. So it might be worth trying. And like most things, just because you eat one meal without gluten doesn't mean it's going to tell you exactly how you feel. You might have to give it a couple of days, try it without, and then eat some and see what happens. How do you feel? Yeah. So you just got to play around with it a little bit, see what effects it has for you. And then you might decide, wow, this is worth it. All right, so I have moved on. The peppers are chopped. I'm having the tomatoes. You can throw whole tomatoes in there. I like them cut in half. I mean, if they're really tiny, fresh in the summer, because you couldn't wait for them to get any bigger, you can throw them in there. But when they're this size and it's almost like a mouthful, I just slice them in half. Because otherwise I'm just eating a tomato. And I want to get more on my fork or spoon than just a tomato. I want a couple of different flavors on there. Yeah. All right. Make sure we get some in there. All right. And I know that when we started talking before we really were filming, some people were talking about relatives that already have to eat gluten-free, and they've tried some of the alternative products and did not enjoy them. Because there is a group of population that really needs to avoid gluten, some companies are coming out with gluten-free versions of things. Gluten-free versions of cookies or pastas that, don't have gluten. Often they're cooked with different kinds of flour or, have replaced with certain different items to keep them gluten-free, but they try to get the flavor and texture of the original. My household is currently experimenting with all kinds of pasta, because that's one of those things that most regular pasta has gluten in it, because made with wheat flour. And so it's been interesting just finding all the variations. And you might have heard of some of them. I mean, they've got pasta made out of cauliflower. I actually had pizza that had a cauliflower crust. Didn't notice that it's kind of like eating a pizza cracker, because back in the day I would have wanted the pan crust thick pizza crust. So the cauliflower crust is thinner, but it was still good. It tasted good. It did. So I was very surprised and happy about that.
Well, I asked her, what kind did you get?
Oh, you want to know the toppings?
Well, I want what kind was pizza?
I got it from a pizza place at a neighboring town. So yeah. All right. All right. Of course, you can add all the tomatoes. It's supposed to be like a cup and a half, but we'll stop for that for now. This is cilantro, so it adds a little freshness, and of course, it's really big in Southwest cooking. A lot of people put it on tacos, burritos, enchiladas, all kinds of things that come out of Southwest cooking, and you're going to start smelling it. This is another one of those ingredients. Isn't marked as optional in the recipe, but again, depending on your household, some people really do not like cilantro.
I never heard of it.
Some people go, oh, it tastes like soap. There's just something about their body makeup that does not like the cilantro. It's similar to parsley, but it definitely has a different flavor than parsley. Yeah. It's like the Latin American version of parsley. So the Italians put parsley in everything, and cilantro goes in everything south of the border. Alrighty. Dun, dun, dun. All right. So I saved this for last because you can tell it just likes to stick to the cutting board. So we're just going to give it kind of a nice whoosh. I'll battle it later and get the rest of it off in a bit. All right. So as I said, I would show you a bowl. So there we go. And just like a salad, we're going to eventually toss it. But first, we're going to make a dressing. Because, we said salad, therefore there should be a dressing.
That's right.
Right? All right. I think we'll go ahead and just slide this one out of the way. So we're going to do it in this little bowl right here. And if you've ever come to one of the cooking demos before, you'll know that I'm pretty bad about measuring things. I have measuring stuff under here, which is really sad, but I tend to just eyeball it. So join me in the land of eyeballing. All right. Or as I can say, make it to your taste. It's not your eyeballing, you're making it to your taste. Right? All right. You do get to taste some of this in just a few moments. We're almost done. So I put a couple of tablespoons of olive oil in my bowl. Go into town with a little bit of lime juice. All right. We didn't have minced garlic. I thought we did. Otherwise, I would have sautéed it with the quinoa. So we're just using a little powdered garlic. Sorry. I also didn't have honey, so we're going to use a little bit of granulated sugar. Sometimes you just got to roll with the punches, right? Yeah. All right. Does anybody know what cumin is?
No.
All right. This is another one of those spices that you...
Pronounce it coming.
All right. You're coming. All right. It's kind of a smoky flavor. It is ground toasted coriander, which is the seed version of this product. Again, used in a lot of Southwest cooking. Has a bit of a smoky earthiness to it. So I'm going to use just a little bit of it. So this is, again, one of those things that some people really like or some people don't. I didn't do the red chili pepper or the cayenne pepper because a lot of seniors don't appreciate, and some actually can have it. So instead, I'm actually replacing that with some smoked paprika today. So super mild version of kind of similar to those products, but on the much milder side. All right. This is how I'm trying to be very good with salt for everybody here. I grabbed one of our little salt packets. So I could absolutely not heavy-hand the salt at all. There we go. One tiny packet. Do people like pepper? Is pepper okay? Is anybody anti-pepper? We like pepper? All right. So we're getting 2 bags of pepper. Ha ha ha. All right. And we're going to do 1 packet of sugar. And you can use honey. You can use agave. Whatever sugar replacement you want to do, just something a little bit sweet so that you can balance out the acidity. It'll change the thickness just a little bit. But if you whisk like a crazy person, you can start emulsifying your olive oil. So you'll get some of that back. And honestly, you're pouring it over grains and not salad. So the grains are going to just kind of start soaking things up. I'm on the hunt for a fork. I thought I grabbed a whisk. Evidently didn't. So, old school whisk. I have tried it. Of all of the replacers, it's probably one I prefer next to agave. I have become more of a fan of the agave. Agave is a sweetening alternative. It's kind of like a syrup. It kind of looks like corn syrup, except it's made from, I believe, a type of cactus plant, I believe, an agave plant. And so it's sweet, but it's kind of thick. Kind of like honey. It's a clear looking, honey looking kind of thing. I know, that was super descriptive, and you really appreciate it. That told you everything you ever needed to know about agave. All right, so here's our syrup. Yeah, I'm calling it syrup. It's our dressing, and I'm just going to toss it over. It's just going to add a little something, something. All the fresh vegetables are really going to be what is the most flavorful part. It's a very fresh salad. Obviously, this is really great during the summertime when you've got all those fresh vegetables to pick from. But, you know, our grocery stores tend to have some nice looking vegetables during the winter months too. So you can certainly do this year round. And of course, and you can certainly finish this off with an avocado. You can slice up some avocado and serve it with a little slice of avocado on top, or with some guacamole, just to get a little creaminess. If you don't like those things, don't add them. There's a theme here. If you don't like an ingredient, don't put it in. The only time that really doesn't work is if you are baking. Baking is more like science. It might not actually turn out if you don't add something. But when it comes to cooking, usually there's a lot of leeway. So if you don't like an ingredient, usually you can leave it out or find an alternative that you do like. All right. So that is our very colorful quinoa salad.